The judge.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell it for the record?
My name is Madison Lantsch, Lantzsch.
And what is your occupation?
I am a forensic scientist.
As a forensic scientist, what are your duties?
I analyze and interpret genetic data from evidence submitted to the lab. This includes drawing conclusions on DNA profiles, reviewing data, having up case reports, and reviewing them. I also testify in court when needed.
And what educational background do you have that qualifies you for your duties?
I have a bachelor's of science in biology with emphasis in forensic science and pre-medicine.
And you said you're employed as a forensic scientist, but who do you work for specifically?
I work for the Department of Public Safety Crime Lab in Houston.
And is that the same crime lab that Ms. Patney works for?
Yes.
So all the accreditation questions would be the same since you guys work for the same laboratory?
Yes.
And how does your role differ from Ms. Patney's?
Her role in this case was the biologist, which means that she kind of prepared the evidence for DNA analysis, and I'm the one who actually did the DNA interpretation on the evidence that was submitted that she prepared. So it's kind of like the step after hers.
And in regard to the discipline of DNA testing, have you been proficiency tested?
Yes, I have.
What was the last time you were proficiency tested?
The spring of 2025, and I passed.
Excellent. Are you licensed as a forensic analyst by the Texas Forensic Science Commission?
Yes, I am.
And in addition to sort of the basic education, have you received any additional training to the area of DNA analysis?
Yes, I completed the DNA program for DNA analysis by the Texas DPS Crime Lab. This consisted of, reading relevant literature, having quizzes on DNA analyst concepts, analyzing and interpreting practice mock samples, supervised production cases, passing an oral board, and a mock report.
And have you testified in court before as an expert witness in the area of DNA comparison?
Yes, I have.
Has this been on a few or many occasions?
Many?
About how many? If you can.
22.
20?
22.
22. Gotcha. Have you ever testified in Galveston County before?
Yes, I have.
Can you explain to the jury, and speaking of DNA, what DNA is?
DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It is the blueprint of life. It goes from everything, such as our specific traits, such as hair color and eye color, to the development of our organs and limbs. It is found in every cell in the body, except for red blood cells. It is unique to every individual, except for identical twins. And you get half from your mom and half from your dad.
And where is DNA, what sources, let me rephrase that. Where can DNA come from?
DNA can come from a variety of sources, such as blood, sweat, semen, saliva, hair, and skin cells, or touch DNA.
Now, as part of your analysis, are you able to determine what source that DNA came from if you identify any DNA?
No, we cannot.
Now, how is DNA applied to a forensic setting?
In forensics, we look at certain locations on the DNA strand to determine a person's DNA profile. We can make comparisons between evidence profiles and known profiles. Since every person's DNA profile is unique, it becomes very useful in identifying individuals involved in the crime.
Now, is it possible to take DNA from biological material found at a crime scene and compare it with DNA from a known biological sample taken from a suspect and then make a comparison of those two?
Yes, this is how we can tell if an individual is included or excluded as a contributor to the evidence profile.
And that's what the comparison would tell us?
Yes.
How is a genetic profile from a crime scene sample or a reference standard generated?
So there's a 4-step process. So the first step is extraction, which is when you'll isolate and separate the DNA from the cells. The second step is quantification. This is when we'll see how much DNA is present in the sample. The third step is amplification, which is when we'll make millions of copies of desired DNA fragments. And the fourth step is load, which is when we'll load the sample onto an instrument called a genetic analyzer, which will then send information to a genetic software, which will develop our DNA profile for us.
So does DNA, you said it was sort of the blueprint for each person. Is that a fair analysis?
Yes.
Does each individual's DNA differ from everyone else's?
Yes, everyone's DNA is unique.
Except
Except for identical twins. Apologies.
Except for identical twins, yes. Now, does DNA change over a person's lifetime?
No, it does not.
Did you perform certain DNA analysis in this case yourself?
Yes, I performed DNA interpretation in this case.
And when you perform that interpretation, what do you do with the data? How does it get recorded?
So the data that's associated with the case, the evidence profiles, the no profiles, all that has already went through the laboratory process before it comes to me. And so what I will receive is the DNA profiles associated with the case, and then the data that came from those four-step processes. And then I will review them, and then I will start interpreting the DNA profiles.
And once you've made those interpretations, do you record that in like a report or any sort of standardized format?
Yes, I will type up a case report on my findings.
And did you do so in this case?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Ms. Lantsch?
Launch.
Your apologies. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 483. Do you recognize it?
Yes. Yes, I do.
And what is it?
It is a copy of our DNA laboratory report.
Now, I'm showing you what's been previously admitted as State's 495. My question is State's 483, is this an unredacted version of the same report in State's 495?
Yes, it is.
And does this report here in 483 appear to have been tampered or altered with in any way?
No, it is not.
Is it a true and accurate depiction of the entirety of the report?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the State would move to admit State's 483. No objection. You may vote, Your Honor.
Yes.
So, Ms. Lantsch, on page 1 here, we see that first biology section that Ms. Patnick has already testified to. And on page 2 of this report, here, I'm going to zoom in to make it a little bit more easier for everyone to see. We see a section called, with the heading DNA. Is that a section that you prepared?
Yes, it is.
And what was tested on this item here?
These were the swabs from the stains of the outside of the front of the purse.
And what were your results after having analyzed the DNA data?
The DNA profile from this item is interpreted as a mixture of two individuals for Tammy King as an assumed contributor. Based on likelihood ratio results, Tara Lynn King, Uriah Urick, and Travis Hodge are each excluded as a contributor to this profile.
So let me ask a question about how you word your results. Because would you be surprised to know that a lot of people want you to just say, her DNA was in fact on this item? Would that surprise you?
No, we're not.
Are you able to say that?
No, I'm not.
So as far as what you can say as a forensic scientist what are the various results that you would get from your position?
Do you mean the comparison results, or?
Yes, as in like the likelihood ratios.
So one way that we do comparisons is using a software tool called StarMix. And StarMix is just a tool that's used to help the forensic analyst perform statistical calculations and deconvolute profiles. And so the StarMix tool will generate something called a likelihood ratio, which is just a mathematical way to give weight to one scenario when compared to an alternate scenario to see how much more likely it is. That number that's given from the likelihood ratio is reflective of the strength of the comparison. So the higher the number or the higher the LR, the more strength there is for the initial scenario. So in terms of what I'd be saying with my report, is I would be saying that the probability that the evidence I have is best explained if it came from the person of interest over the probability that the evidence I have came from an unknown, unrelated individual.
Can you hear my approach?
Yes.
Ms. Lantsch, I'm going to show you what's been marked that states 496. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
It is a graph of our likelihood ratio reporting results. Whatever the numerical value we get from that StarMix, you can have like a line graph, and it would determine which reporting statement we'll be using.
And did you prepare this graph yourself?
I did not make this graph myself, but it is something that was given to me by our laboratory.
Is it something that you utilize as part of your duties?
Yes.
Has it appeared to have been tampered or altered with in any way?
No.
Your Honor, this time state would move to admit states 496 technical plus counsel. No objection.
496 will be admitted.
And may I publish it as needed in comparison with the So, Ms. Lantsch, to show the jury this graph, could you sort of explain each step along the way?
So the first one on the left is exclusionary, or this would be like exclusion. So this would be meaning that an individual is excluded as a contributor to the evidence profile. To the right of that would be limited support for exclusion. That means that there is some but not definitive support for excluding an individual. The next one would be uninformative. That means that both scenarios are equally likely to one another. So both, they could be, you can't really draw too much weight to that result. The limited support for inclusion means that there's just a limited support towards including an individual. The next would be moderate support. So there's some more support towards including an individual. Then there's strong support, which means that there's more weight or more strength towards that, the scenario of including an individual in the evidence profile. And then you have very strong support, which means that it just means that there's greater support towards that initial scenario.
And as part of your report, I'm looking on page, I believe it's page 11 here. You see a chart. Is that just a different way to express that graph that we've admitted into evidence here?
Yes.
So the minimum section for very strong support is 1 million in the likelihood ratio?
Yes.
So to move on to some of these other items, Ms. Patnaik has previously testified that some of these items were not tested. So I'm going to skip over those and go down to item 01-06AA. And what is the DNA analysis? What results do you have for that?
The DNA profile from this item is interpreted as originating from a single individual and is consistent with the DNA profile from Tammy King. King, Uriah Urick, and Travis Hodge are each excluded as contributor of this profile.
Now on item 0107AA, what are the DNA results here?
The DNA profile from this item is interpreted as originating from a single individual and consistent with the DNA profile from Tammy Sue King, Tara Lynn King, Uriah Lee Urick, and Travis Hodge are each excluded as contributors of this profile.
Going on to page 3 of your report, at the top of the page, start with 0108AA. What are the results of the DNA on this item?
The partial DNA profile from this item is interpreted as a mixture of two individuals with Tammy Sue King as an assumed contributor. Based on the likelihood ratio results, Tara Lynn King, Uriah Lee Urick, and Travis Hodge are each excluded as contributors to this profile.
Now moving on to item 0109-AA, what are the DNA results here?
The DNA profile from this item is interpreted as originating from a single individual and is consistent with the DNA profile from Tammy Sue King. Tara Lynn King, Uriah Lee Urick, and Travis Hodge are each excluded as contributors of this profile.
Now I kind of skipped over it, but going back out here, the items that we've covered, are they all swabs from a purse and various sheets? Is that what those items are?
Yes.
And beginning here at item number 01-11-AA and 01-12-AA, what did you do, or what was done for DNA analysis for these samples?
These are known samples from the individuals involved in this case, and so we developed a known DNA profile, and we used it for comparisons to the evidence profiles developed in this case.
And was a similar thing done for item 01-13-AA?
Yes.
And then later on in the report, item 14-01, similar thing done there.
Yes.
So beginning on page 4 of States 483, what are the DNA results for item 02? Well, before I get into that, what is the item in item 02-01-AB?
This is a cutting from a stain on the pillow from Tara Lynn King's bedroom.
And what are the DNA results there?
The DNA profile from this item is interpreted as originating from a single individual. The probability of obtaining this profile, if the DNA came from Uriah Lee Urick, is 146 septillion times greater than the probability of obtaining the profile if the DNA came from an unrelated unknown individual. This likelihood ratio indicates very strong support for the proposition that Uriah Lee Urick is a contributor of the profile. Tara Lynn King, Tammy Sue King, and Travis Hodge are each excluded as contributor of this profile.
Now, switching over briefly to States 496 is 146 septillion larger than 1 million.
146 septillion is the number 146 followed by 24 zeros.
And for reference, a million has 6 zeros.
Yes, that is correct.
Now, Are you able to answer questions as to why DNA may or may not be on an individual item?
That is correct. I'm not able to say how the DNA got there, only that DNA is present and that an individual is included or excluded as a contributor to the profile.
So there's no explanation that you'd be able to give on why a pillow from Tara King's bedroom doesn't have her DNA on.
Again, I'm not allowed to say how DNA got there, just that DNA is present.
Understood, thank you. Now, moving on to item 03-01, what item was tested here?
This was another cutting from a stain from the pillow from Tara King's bedroom.
And what are the DNA results on this item?
The DNA profile from this item is interpreted as a mixture of two individuals with Tara King as an assumed contributor. The probability of obtaining this mixture profile, if the DNA came from Tara King and Uriah Urick, is 258 septillion times greater than the probability of obtaining this profile if the DNA came from Tara King and one related individual. This likelihood ratio indicates very strong support for the proposition that Uriah Urick is a contributor to the profile. Based on likelihood ratio results, Tammy King and Travis Hodge are each excluded as a contributor to this profile.
And kind of a similar question, is 258 septillion larger than the 1 million threshold for very strong support that we see in states 496?
Yes.
Moving on to page 5 of your report here, we'll be talking about item 04-01. What item was being tested?
This was a cutting from the stains of the pillow from Tara King's bedroom.
And what were the DNA results of that item?
The DNA profile from this item is interpreted as a mixture of two individuals or Tara King as an assumed contributor. The probability of obtaining this mixture profile if the DNA came from Tara King and Uriah Urick is 341 septillion times greater than the probability of obtaining this profile if the DNA came from Tara King and one unrelated unknown individual. This likelihood ratio indicates very strong support for the proposition that Uriah Urick is a contributor to the profile. Based on likelihood ratio results, Tammy King and Travis Hodge are each excluded as a contributor to this profile.
Now moving on to item 0601, what is the item that was being tested and what were the results of those tests?
This was a swab from the bottom of a magazine from the outside of Tara King's bedroom. And my results were, due to insufficient data, no interpretable DNA profile was obtained. No associations or exclusions will be made.
And moving on to item 08-01, just what is that item? And then you have your DNA results on the next page. Just what is this item?
This was a long rifle caliber Smith & Wesson model SW22 Victory semi-automatic pistol from Uriah Urick.
Moving on to page 6, we see the DNA results for 08-01. What are your results?
The DNA profile from this item is interpreted as a mixture of two individuals. The probability of obtaining this mixture profile if the DNA came from Tara King and one unknown individual is 378 quadrillion times greater than the probability of obtaining this profile if DNA came from two unrelated unknown individuals. This likelihood ratio indicates very strong support for the proposition that Tara King is a contributor to the profile. The probability of obtaining this mixture profile if the DNA came from Uriah Urick and one unrelated unknown individual is 188 septillion times greater than the probability of obtaining this profile if the DNA came from two unrelated unknown individuals. This likelihood ratio indicates very strong support for the proposition that Uriah Urick is a contributor to the profile. The probability of obtaining this mixture profile, if the DNA came from Tammy King and Uriah Urick, is 6.98 quattuordecillion times greater than the probability of obtaining this profile if the DNA came from two unrelated unknown individuals. This likelihood ratio indicates very strong support for the proposition that Tammy King and Uriah Urick are both contributors to the profile. Based on likelihood ratio results, Tammy Sue King and Travis Hodge are each excluded as a contributor to this profile.
Now, we've seen the number septillion a handful of times. Let's start with quadrillion. Is quadrillion around the same? How much is quadrillion?
A quadrillion is 15 zeros, so it is 378 followed by 15 zeros.
And how many zeros was after septillion?
24.
Now, how many zeros is behind quattuordecillion?
43 zeros. Or it is 6.98 followed by 43 zeros.
And lastly, we have item 14001. That's just a known reference. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
I'll pass the witness, Judge. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
Ma'am, my name is Bill Agnew, and I represent Uriah Urick. You're sitting here to my right. I wanted to question you about one thing. There was a blanket that indicated that there were two DNA profiles. One matched Tammy King, and then one matched an unrelated individual. Do you know which one that is?
You mean 0108A?
I'm not looking at my report right now, but that's what I'm talking about.
The swab from the stain of the white blanket from the victim?
Yes. So what that means is that her DNA was on it, but you don't know who the other person's was, correct?
Yes, that is correct. The other three individuals that I did comparisons with to the profile, they were excluded.
So, I mean, I'm not trying, but I mean, one of the eliminations, one of the people that listed in the elimination was Terry Hutton. Did y'all not test his DNA?
I did not.
Okay. So that was not used for comparison then?
I only did comparison with the knowns that were submitted to our laboratory.
Okay. And so maybe it wasn't submitted then, but it just lists there on the eliminations that Terry Hutton is one of the people, and I was wondering if his DNA was tested as well, but it doesn't sound like it was.
We never received a known, to my recollection, from Terry Hutton.
Okay. That's what it is. Go ahead, further, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. David. Our next witness. The state will show you a